Oh, it says preparing to live stream. Oh, there's a new model there. And for our buddies tune in on YouTube and on Zoom, let us know what is your favorite piece of technology and why. Awesome. Cool. It is just loading. All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. I'm here with our design buddies and our buddies at PMDojo and Vic, our speaker today. And I'll quickly open up with a couple of slides. So if y'all new to Design Buddies, hello, welcome. We're the buddy fam, we're the bunny buddies. I'm Grace. I founded Design Buddies. I kind of run it for fun on the side of a full-time job at EA, and I'm professionally, I'm a product/UX designer. And so Design Buddies is, our mission is to help designers level up in their design career. So we have a lot of events, resources like this. We actually have 44,000 members on Discord. We actually have not updated this slide for a while. That's okay. We hosted over 100 events for now. And y'all welcome to connect with us on any of our social media platforms, and I'll drop the links in the Zoom chat. Some quick house rules: events are recorded, but you can access all of our recordings on our YouTube channel. Feel free to engage in the chat. If our speaker, Vic, says something interesting or some of our buddies say something interesting, feel free to just vibe off each other in the chat. And at the end, we like to try out, at the end, you can promote your LinkedIn links for buddies to connect, but keep them at the end as well, so people just meet each other. We also have some Q&A at the end following presentation. So after this, I'll be handed over to Bosky, and then Vic will do his presentation, and we'll do some Q&A and a group selfie after that as well. Y'all welcome to use any of our Zoom backgrounds too. I'll drop them in the chat. And if anything really resonates and vibes with y'all, feel free to share it on social media, tag us, go reshare it, and hop into Discord after this and just have fun, be respectful. And yeah, happy Friday, everyone. And with that, I'll hand it over to Bosky.
Awesome. I don't think I'll be able to keep up with that energy because I haven't had my breakfast or my coffee this morning yet. But thank you, Grace. It's always nice to collaborate with you and the community. Are you able to hear me okay? Yeah? Yes? Okay. So give me 1 second while I just bring up my slides. So I'm Bosky. While the slides are loading up, I am the founder of PMDojo, and PMDojo is a really global learning community to help people in product. And when I say product, I mean UX design, product design, UX research, product management, software development, really kind of connect together, skill, reskill, upskill, and really access this huge pool of mentors and very senior product leaders, and find ways to help make that transition a lot smoother. And so I started PMDojo in 2019. Really had no idea that the pandemic was coming in a few months. But at the time, after being in the tech industry in design roles, as well as product management roles and executive roles, after almost 2 decades, I decided to take a step down and really pursue something that I was very, very passionate about, and a lot of frustration that had built over the years, just kind of seeing a lot of the broken things in the industry. And so in 2019, I left all of that. And thanks to my husband, who said, financially, we are going to be fine. Don't worry, pursue something that you really care about. And that's how PMDojo was born. We had lots of free resources in the beginning. We still have free resources right now, but then over time, it kind of really grew as a startup. It is still a completely bootstrapped solo founder, woman-led founder, but we're extremely supported by some amazing leaders across the company. So just a little bit, mission about PMDojo is to make product careers in tech more equal, more accessible, more diverse, and more inclusive. And that is something that is really important at PMDojo. We know that there is a chicken and egg problem in the tech industry. I'm sure everyone here has experienced it, or you've probably heard. And that is, you need experience to get the role, but then how do you ever get the role to build that experience, right? And it just kind of goes in the circular fashion. And something that I think a lot of people think is that this chicken and egg problem only happens right at the beginning of a career when you're trying to make that pivot happen. But in the course of 2 decades of being in the industry, I've seen this happen every single time you are going to be trying for a new role or a promotion, because there will always be someone who has more years of experience than you. And so I really wanted to solve this while also solving the lack of diversity in the tech industry and also helping people stand out, because that is something that's really needed. So very briefly, I know we have a very special partnership with Design Buddies. So Grace, if you can actually share the scholarship information as well. But just like Design Buddies, we run a lot of free community events. So if you're interested, feel free to subscribe on our website. But also we have three special learning tracks for designers, for product managers, UX researchers, and developers. So if you want to work as a cross-functional team and go all the way from ideation to launch and actually launch a live product in the market and not just worry about case studies and fake projects, you can join our core track and industry track. In industry track, we match you up with a real company so that you can actually solve a real business problem and help that company launch a product as a cross-functional team. And both of them are 10 weeks program, and we have a special scholarship for Design Buddies. And then the light track is a really self-paced program, 6 weeks, where you're able to build a validated prototype with office hours and community access on a real user problem. And so it's really kind of interesting. I think we also had a recent success from Design Buddies. I think one of the Design Buddies had actually joined our industry track, and she ended up making a transition as a UX designer and also increasing her salary. So happy to answer any questions along the way. But over to you, and I'm really excited for the event today. Thank you so much, Grace and Vic, for doing this.
Awesome, thank you. On to your presentation, Vic. And feel free to drop any questions in the chat if anything comes up. We'll be keeping track of them too in the Zoom chat and on YouTube. And I'll make sure I have that open too. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. Thanks, Bosky and Grace. I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not able to see the chat though.
I can man the chat, Vic, don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks for joining. And yeah, I think like today's topic kind of relates to the entire story that Bosky mentioned, where we know a lot of people, a lot of folks are trying to break into tech, especially like I'm talking from like product design perspective or UX design perspective. So we have been seeing a lot of people trying to get into design, and there are like a lot of common problems and patterns that we see. And I think my intent today is to just share some things that I find, and maybe share some solutions as to how this can be solved. So I think yeah, hopefully you'll find it helpful. So just a little bit of intro about me. So my name is Vikram, and I am currently working as a senior product designer at Salesforce. Previously, I have worked at companies like Synopsys, IBM, and I consult with some startups with research and design. And my background has been master's in software engineering and research in human-computer interaction. So I'm also one of those who kind of like pivoted into design and from being a software engineer. And I think like it's kind of been a interesting journey, because back then we didn't have communities like, you know, Design Buddies or PMDojo. So it's been a little different journey. But yeah, and I think it's very important to kind of just go into like why we are talking about this topic today. And I would definitely thank Design Buddies and PMDojo for allowing, you know, scenarios where we can talk about such topics. So so I think like some of the observations, and also like as a context, like I have been mentoring designers for about like 4 years now, and and I have this is like my 10th year in design and tech. So I have been talking to a lot of folks, and I have been like hearing or observing a lot of changes that are happening. So and if I have to like concise the entire findings, I think the observations are like design as an industry is changing right now, and we have a lot of people trying to get into design. So the way interviews are conducted, the way design is perceived, everything is kind of changing today, and we need to adapt to the changes in order to be able to successfully break into the roles that we are interested in, and also like as you have seen, I've pretty much worked in enterprise design in the past and even currently. So it's very important to also know what exactly enterprise design is looking for. And when we say design in tech, it's more of like, there are a lot of companies that fall under tech, and it's again like divided into different categories. But it's very important to see what exactly we notice that is changing, as well as like I'll also quite share like what am I seeing in the portfolios when people ask for like a portfolio review, or some sort of changes that they're doing for different job interviews, and also some suggestions as to what can be fixed in different portfolios or the way we present ourselves as designers, so that we can improve our chances of getting successful at interviews. So so that's the context, and I think like there are a lot of common patterns that I see in portfolios when I'm talking to a lot of folks, and also as we are looking into different portfolios, I think there are like very common things that I would like to point out, which could probably help, and also like I'll get into the direction of like how do we find different patterns. So I think the most common pattern that I quite observe is like website redesigns as part of the design portfolios, and it is very important to kind of see what exactly is the company that we are applying to, and what exactly is the product that we will be working for. If let's say your interview is successful or you get that role that you're interviewing for, and it's not like redesigns are bad, but I think it's contextually very important to understand how a redesign would help your portfolio as a designer when you're interviewing for a specific role. So one of the things is like a website redesign, and also a very common thing that I saw is a lot of people have a blend of both web and mobile projects in their portfolios. And when you're applying to a company which is working or which is developing a product within a web space, it is very important for you or your portfolio to be relative to what the product is developed for. So it's quite important to have that relatability between what you're presenting versus what exactly is the product that you're interviewing for. If it's a mobile application for which there is a design role and you're interviewing for it, it's important to quite present a mobile project, for example. And a lot of times people come for like a review saying that I've been applying a lot, but I haven't been getting a lot of good response from my interviews. And when you dig deeper, it's more like, if I ask like what companies are interviewing for, they say like Dropbox or any other like web-based products, but their portfolio only has like mobile projects. So I wouldn't say this is like a hard and fast rule, but it would definitely impact or help you to provide your perspective on a similar medium if you can present your designs in that fashion. So and considering like these as an important factors, it's also important to see that interview process is very relative. So we always see different factors and different metrics in different portfolios. And let's say there are like two designers, and you always compare as a hiring team or as a hiring manager, like different portfolios for these two designers, and the communication, presentation, storytelling, and everything. But I think one of the key things that we need to also look into is relatability to the products that we are applying for. Uh, and I see that a lot are kind of missing from that perspective. So when I say relatability, it's like, if you, let's say, want to get into a specific company or a specific product, you need to work towards like creating how you would want to build your portfolio based on that product. So, and there's also like a lot of different sections of a design portfolio, right? Like there are like so many elements that would fall under a design project or a case study. And we also, it is important to figure out projects that can kind of span into like different parts of design process. So sometimes what happens is when you go back to the relatability concept, and when we know that the interview process is relative, a redesign versus like an interaction design project, there could be, and if the product that you're applying for is more towards like interaction design, there could be an advantage for a designer who is actually having a case study that has a lot of interaction design. So it is quite important to figure out what you're exactly applying for and what patterns do you need to like have or solve in order to get into a specific role. And in order to like find the right UX problems to solve, this is also quite important and very commonly noticeable thing, because I know as someone who is new into design, it is very tough to find the right UX problem. So most of the times it's like, we want to solve, you are probably out of a boot camp, you're probably out of a specific scenario, but you don't know what exactly is the right UX problem to solve or have as a case study in your portfolio. So in order to find the right UX problems, you can do some sort of like a research and figure out what exactly is the common patterns or UX, to be very specific, that's happening in the products that you're applying for. So for example, I can show you how you can probably find different products of a specific company and see what the UX patterns are, which really can help you find the right patterns that you need to pick and choose and work on individually or with a group of other designers. Or even like, you can start working on these problems and share with someone or like your mentor or anyone that you know around in your circle, saying that, hey, I'm working on this. What do you think? Because I see you're working in this company. I would love to get your feedback on what the problem is and what's the solution like. So let's say, and I'm just giving Salesforce as an example, and this applies and this can be used for any other product and company as well. I'll also show like a startup which has a product and how you can dig deeper to understand what the user experience is going to look like so that you can find the right problems. So maybe we can switch to browser. So can you still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So let's say you want to look at what products Salesforce has, for example. So if you go to the website and if you click on products, you will find like a lot of different categories and sections of different products that are available for Salesforce. And this applies to any other company that's out there. And I work for MuleSoft, for example, and there are like multiple products within MuleSoft. So you can go into a specific product and you can kind of look into what are the different platforms or what are the different solutions a specific problem or a product is kind of providing. And in order to, let's say you're interested to apply for a role in Salesforce as a UX designer or a product designer, it's important to know what exactly will be the user experience, right? And there is no way we will know that 100% until you actually get into company, but you can do some exercise like this in order to find out what that looks like. So for example, if you go into a specific platform under Salesforce and under MuleSoft, usually there are a lot of demos that are available to understand what the product looks like. And you can also find similar product demos on YouTube to understand how exactly this particular application works. So for example, if you click on like a demo or something, you can definitely see that, how the platform looks like, and how exactly is the UX gonna be like. And you can quite identify similar patterns based on different screens or different things that you see in the demos of different products. So for example, this one, you can see it is like a marketplace with different applications, and that is like, for example, one good pattern to kind of like mark and understand that there is a scope if you kind of try to solve a problem for a marketplace within like an enterprise solution. It is kind of a very good way to like understand how the work is going to be, and also the teams will have like an relatability to your work. And again, like I said, you will never probably get to the right solution, but I think the attempt is to kind of like quite understand how exactly you can try to get closer to the UX of a specific product. And this doesn't really necessarily mean that you will probably uh, be close to the position in Salesforce, but this can also be used for your other uh, interviews as well, because it's more closer to an enterprise design problem and a solution, rather than you trying to solve like a very small like shopping cart kind of an experience as a project in your case study. So because it's relative, and because the design is getting a little technical and complex, it is important for us to like upscale our problem statements as well, as we are trying to solve different problems in case studies. So similarly, like I just received an email this morning from a friend of mine for a specific role in a startup called Airplane, and in order to like understand what the work for you will be as a designer, I just created a profile for this particular company. I just signed up with my Gmail, and I could log into the platform. So once you log into the platform, I think it's quite easier to understand what the patterns or what work you will do as a UX designer. So for example, you can, and these are like very common across like multiple platforms or different products that you see. Like for example, if you go to a settings page, a settings is a very common section that every product has. And within the settings tab, you will have like different patterns like members or users or participants, or there are like different groups, or there are like different sections of a product, right? So let's say you go to groups and you want to create a new group. You will see that these are different fields that are needed to kind of create a specific like new group or a role or email. And you can see that this is more of like a lot of like interaction that is happening within the product. Similarly, if you want to go to a tab called resource, and when you click on a new resource, you see that there are like different options to select. So if you don't go into the specifics of what this does, just look at it from like a UX perspective as to see like how the interaction is, and how someone would have to like create something in order to set up or use the product. And you see that there are so many options and so many selections. So for example, a form is a very common UX pattern that you see in a lot of companies, and you can just go crazy on just designing different forms for different use cases. So that itself is a big problem that you can solve or try to identify. Similarly, permissions or access management is one another like important category that lies in a lot of like companies, or even like any other apps like Slack or Discord. Anything has like access management where you can provide access to different members of the team. So access management, for example, is one key element that if you master as a designer, for example, and present it to different companies, it's going to be very like helpful project if you really are looking for any UX problems to solve. Similarly, like tables are also like a huge deal in most of the enterprise products. Like I think you can also see here that there are like a lot of graphs or tables or sections for which you need to like build the experience as a designer. I think it's quite interesting if you can get to such problems or like interactions as a designer in order to figure out how that can be done. So this concept kind of quite has been like very helpful for me in the past. For example, like while I was like looking for opportunities earlier, I quite followed a similar approach. For example, for Salesforce, like for example, if you want to get into or understand the experience, not even like get into of how the products would look like, I think it's quite important to search for similar products that look like, you know, Salesforce and any other CRM platforms, and you will find a lot of companies like Sugar CRM or Zoho CRM or HubSpot, and you can go to YouTube and search for them and just look at their product demos. You will be able to see a lot of common UX patterns that you can identify. And again, like it's not easy as an individual or someone who is starting into the industry to kind of get started to build their own problem or work on case studies. But you can always lean on like in our communities, and also like many other like product managers or designers. Like product managers are a very good resource to kind of identify which problem exactly is the right problem to solve, right? So as designers, we might not have the right judgment to kind of like pick a specific problem from a product, but you can say like, hey, I'm trying to build a solution for a CRM platform, and maybe you can like go find a product manager on LinkedIn or in like PMDojo or in like Design Buddies and try to like reach out to people and say like, hey, I'm looking for a problem that I'm trying to solve within CRM platforms, and I'm trying to like understand what exactly will be a good use case to work on. And if you can present what you find from this sort of like research or an approach and show them common patterns, any product manager will be able to easily provide that sort of information to you so that you can work on it. And also it is quite important to like get that feedback, and it's almost like working within the company, but you're kind of like virtually working with the product managers or the engineering teams or anyone. So these could definitely be a very good approaches in order to build different parts of like platforms. And it's not just for like B2B or B2C. It's quite applicable to any product. Like even if you're looking at Uber, you can still do the same for like, you know, different delivery or tracking kind of applications and see what are the common patterns. Like maybe you would want to show a route in a map, for example, for a delivery application. You can still find similar approaches and try to build a specific pattern or the right UX pattern in order to put that in your case studies. So I think like this approach has been like, I have individually spoken to a lot of mentees or like different folks, and I have explained this sort of approach, but I think it's like a very important piece that would definitely you know, work in like building your case studies or building your problems. So I think like, I think that's something that I wanted to share across, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well specific to this, or like in general about like the tech companies or like different ways of breaking into tech.
Thank you, Rick. I'm just taking a look at the chat. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, same. I noticed some questions. I guess we can start in order. I have some in like our group chat. So our first question is, to create a UX case study, what is the first step we should take? So I know it could be really overwhelming with all the information and saving your design artifacts and stuff. I'm also taking questions from YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I said, whatever problem that we first find for a UX case study, I think that's the most important, and that's quite very important, because the problem that you're solving quite relates to the entire process. So if the earlier you get to the right problem, I think you will be able to build a solid case study in order to, you know, make it a very good one, because initially it will not probably have all the pieces, But I think before starting a case study, it's good to take a step back and think of what exactly am I solving as a designer uh, in this case study, and how impactful or helpful this is. So if you are able to clearly articulate or answer these questions before starting a case study, I think uh, you are on the right track.
Yeah, think of the problem as like the thesis statement of your case study that you keep studying back into. And one thing that I personally like to do is like ask people and companies like, what is the biggest problem that you're facing right now, and think about how you would approach it. I think that's another way to stand out as an applicant and look at their competitors and everything as well. I'm going to take one from YouTube and kind of alternate back and forth. And this one's from Samantha is, what will be the right mix of projects on a portfolio? I know like sometimes as a job seeker, people might be applying to all sorts of industries as well. Like, do you want to focus on like more mobile, web, research, interaction design, SaaS, fintech, games industry? Yeah, how would you recommend just like going about like your portfolio and like applying to a whole range of industries?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And that's the point where I was talking about like relatability. So let's say, because the list of different sections that you mentioned is like pretty wide. So if you're like very interested in a specific platform or a specific section of a portfolio of companies, I think you can go in that specific direction. So I know a lot of designers who are very specific, are interested in healthcare, so they quite try to find problems or try to have their portfolio or case studies that are relatable to those companies. Because let's say you're interested in healthcare or you're interested in banking, and it still works if you have like a good case study and it's again like relative and the usual interviewing process. But if you have something that's relatable to the team that's interviewing you, and the same, if you talk in the same language, I think it's like it's going to really help or influence the entire like interview process in general. So I think like having that context as to what exactly that product is that you're aiming for is really important. And if you don't have anything like that, it's really totally fine to have diversified set of portfolios, because you never know who would like which project from your portfolio. So you can obviously have all sorts of like different case studies as well. So again, these are all not like specific rules. I think like it's more of like trial and error that you kind of like get to at a point where you have, let's say, 6 projects, you just present like 2 depending on which company you're applying to. So I think you'll eventually find that spot.
Yeah, you can also like ask your recruiter and hiring manager, like, which project do you think would be the strongest for me to show and prepare for my interview and stuff? Because they want you to get the job as well. So recruiter and hiring manager is friend, because they sometimes get a bonus if you get hired. So just a subtle tip.
I shared a link on the chat. Like if anyone's looking for some examples of what kind of projects you can work on, I just shared a link out there that just shows examples of what some of our alumni actually solved and built. I think is something that I hear a lot of the times when I'm talking with designers is we get too fixated on choosing a very complex problem, or we get very fixated on what tools are we going to use to showcase our portfolio. And something that I just wanted to share here is that I think those things are for ourselves, right? Like it makes us feel good if you have a really fancy and really kind of nice, slick portfolio. But at the end of the day, I have seen portfolios of some amazing candidates that I've hired, and I've seen other hiring managers hire. They have been on Canva, they have been on Wix, they have been on Notion. So at the end of the day, I don't think the tool kind of matters or how complex the problem is. Be very, very mindful of showing and demonstrating your design process and why you have, as a designer, taken a certain decision, a certain step, as opposed to just following a checklist, which you might have done maybe in your boot camp or your typical, like we all know, you have to research, then you have to, wireframe and come up with some mock-ups, and then you'll have to test it out. But don't just follow that process or that checklist blindly, like really show us why you did what you did. and talk about all of the challenges that you overcame, because that's how you're going to get so relatable with the people that you're going to be talking to in the interview. Because believe me, as designers, as product managers, whoever your hiring committee is, that is their day in and day out. They are solving problems, not just for the customers and businesses, but they're also solving problems along the way. Because if it was that easy, all of these problems would have been solved a long time ago, right? So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and showing that conversion and divergent thinking, like how many solutions came up, and then why did you go with the final one? Actually, what I look for a lot in when I interview people as well. Yeah. Cool. Our next question is, so I feel like this question could be pretty broad. Is like, does the complexity of the problem matter, or can a simple problem be just as effective? Or like, how would maybe providing some examples of problems. I feel like a problem could be simple or complex depending on how much is involved. So like, how would you define complexity of a problem? And what would you recommend buddies searching for problems to solve to go about picking which problem to solve?
Yeah, I think it's important to judge when you get, usually when you apply for a role and when you receive back a response saying, hey, we'd like to interview you. That's the time and place when you have to like just do some research about what exactly that team is working on, or like what exactly is what they expect. And in general, if you're trying to find like design complexity, it depends on your skill set as well. Like if you're someone who is very strong in interactions, then you can definitely try to go deeper into like what exactly would be a strong interaction design problem, and have like more metrics or more different use cases or edge cases that you need to like solve for a specific problem. And again, like you can kind of get to those as you're working, and it's always good to get feedback. So I would just throw your thoughts out anywhere in like any common communities or circles that you have, and ask out. Like usually the notion is that no one would want to share a work in progress project, because they would be like, this might probably not look good, or it's probably not like in a perfect shape. But it's good to share any or all thoughts that you have at an initial phase that you're working on, so that, because I know everyone are kind of like working in silos currently, so it is very tough to kind of know whether the project that you're working on is like complex or whether it's simple. So it's always good to get a lot of feedback.
Yeah, like feel free to share in Design Buddies any ideas you have as well, and get some vibe feedback. I say vibe checks. Vibe checks. So there's a lot of questions. Bossy, feel free to take some as well. I'm just coming through to find some interesting ones.
I think I'm gonna just go at the bottom. How do you do you just reach out, cold outreach to early stage startups with a UX project idea for freelance to add to your portfolio? What is the best strategy? I just put my quick thoughts there. Yes, that is definitely possible. If you're going to be joining an early stage startup, know that they move extremely, extremely fast. And so you're not going to get mentorship. And you have to be in a, like, you want to make sure that would be the right environment to learn and not just feel super demotivated, because there can be different kinds of startups. But that is definitely an area that if you want, you can. I think asking for help and reaching out to the people in your network, that's super important. I think over the last 2 years, especially, it has become a creator's economy. There are lots of people building communities. Design Buddies is one. PMDojo is another one. Reach out. We have side projects too as part of our free community if you want to find people to work on. Because I think a lot of times with portfolio and with case studies, I think one piece that I think becomes increasingly challenging for candidates is how do you show that, and how do you demonstrate, in addition to your design process and design thinking, how do you demonstrate that you can collaborate and be part of a team? Because designers don't work alone, unless, of course, you might be working in an agency setting where you are just, you're working directly with a client, but you're not working with other folks. I think that is something that you want to think about. So if there are opportunities to work on side projects where you're working with different people, because it's very easy to agree in our head with our own ideas. And we never disagree with ourselves most of the time. But when we are working with other people, everyone has a different perspective and everyone has a different lens with which they see the problem, they define the problem, they may have different viewpoints on the design direction. And how do you navigate all of that is what happens in the real world when products are getting designed and built. And so that skill is also very, very important to showcase a lot of the times, depending on how competitive the market is and depending on how many candidates else you're competing with. So yeah, side projects are great. Just reach out, I think, even on Design Buddies and say, hey, I want to work on a side project. Who wants to join? Or reach out in PMDojo, right? We also have that available. And that, again, I think that is one of the biggest reasons why our 3 learning tracks also help with that cross-functional experience.
Yeah.
Also,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Also, just to add to that, Bosky, I think like when a lot of startups don't have their like time, bandwidth, or money to kind of hire a designer to be specific. So I'm talking about like very early stage startups who are just trying to get funding, or you can obviously reach out to all of those startups and say that, hey, do you want me to do like a free review or like a heuristic evaluation, or just find problems in your product, or just give me like an access and I can just go over and try to find some usability issues, or maybe just try to tell you what I find or my perspective as a designer. And it's really gonna help as someone who is like looking for new real world problems to work on. Like you can go to, for example, Y Combinator and find like the startups that they are launching, for example. And every year there are like new startups that keep launching, and you can just cold reach out, is all we can do anyways. So might as well reach out to like the bulk of companies that are available, and definitely people will like reply back saying, yes, we would love to have something as a review from design perspective. And it did work for me as well in the past by like just cold reaching out. It is like a long process, or just have patience, but it will definitely work the more people you reach out to. That's also a very good way to get your hands onto a real problem.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. It is extremely tough though, because people may not respond. And I think as long as we have that thick skin saying, okay, I think the way, as I've gotten a lot of gray hair, what I realized before, I would just get so hurt and so frustrated when I wouldn't hear back. But I think over time, what I've learned is that when I reach out, it's just another way to build a relationship in an industry that I plan to stay in for a long time. And even though from the outset, it can look like the tech industry is very, very big, in essence, it is extremely, extremely small. Most people happen to know each other, and that 6 degrees of separation sometimes even feels less. And so you never know who you reached out, what happens X months later. You may end up interviewing them. You may be interviewing with them for another opportunity, because people are moving across different companies. I'm also going to be sharing, I'm actually thinking of doing a redesign of PMDojo's website. So if anyone's looking for a project, feel free to reach out to me, and it would be a paid gig. Again, we are not making profit as a PMDojo community, but I also don't believe in free work. So if anyone has good design skills and they're wanting to kind of get some real world practice, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about that project.
Yeah, definitely personal networking, building relationships. Instead of like, I feel like networking can sound a little bit intimidating sometimes. Just see it as like making friends and finding how you can help each other and vibing. And
Yeah,
I've been using that word a lot lately.
Yeah.
And also like, if you're just like curious about something, don't be afraid to start it. For example, for Design Buddies, I just want to make some friends in design. So I just made Design Buddies, and no need to ask for anyone's permission. Just do it. Just don't let anything stop you if you're curious. Design assignments. Interesting. I'm just going through some of the questions I see on YouTube and on Zoom.
There is a question. Are you okay if I pick up a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is if I apply to an edtech similar startup as a UI UX designer, but as a new designer, does my 7 years working in education and non-tech roles count as an experience? So this was from JDY. Do you already have some design experience in the real world? If you're still there.
I could also make it so everyone can unmute themselves. There.
Oh, they just finished their bootcamp in May, and interned in an edtech startup this summer. Vikram, do you want to take that? I can also share.
So I think like definitely the context and like the knowledge of the domain quite helps you designing the experiences. But I don't think the number or like the metric of like 7 years or 5 years or 3 years of working in that domain would definitely count as like an experience, as a designer experience. So I think like I think it helps as a context rather than having the experience counting as designer. So you can definitely use that to kind of like go or like target specific edtech companies, saying that you quite understand the problem statement very well compared to someone coming from like a non-edtech background. So it definitely can be used to influence your interviews, or just help them that you got a lot of context in that area.
Yes, absolutely.
I actually got a job without experience as well. I feel like just like curiosity and being really interested in what other people are doing is also good. And like just being open-minded to seek different opinions different than yourselves. Yeah, networking. That's how I got a job without applying. Just networking. I actually never applied for any of the jobs, or just like got it was solely through networking.
That is a I think a very, very smart way to apply, because if you look at any of the hiring, like the number of interviews and the interview process that exists for product people, designers included, it is long and windy, with panel rounds and all of those. So yes, if you can leverage those relationships, that's really, really key. Really
Yeah,
key.
leverage relationships, but also put in the work to improve your craft as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to kind of share something here. I think a lot of times for people who are trying to get into, and we're just going to talk about design here. One thing is, and I would love, Vikram, your perspective on this, there are many different kinds of design roles. And so I think a lot of the times we say product design, and we just lump everything under UX design. So, there is UI design, UX design, there is UX content, there is service design. Some companies hire for that. So there are a lot of different kind of roles. So just kind of just be mindful, I think, when you're trying to search for these roles. And I think for a lot of people who are looking to make that switch and get into a design role for the first time, I think just as humans, it is very, very normal that we start focusing on all the things that we don't have. So it could be we don't have that many years of experience, or we don't have the domain experience, or I've never been a designer before. You want to stop and maybe just reflect and take stock of all the things that you have. These could be your own your superpowers. That's what I like to call them. These are things that make you unique. These are your unique perspectives, things that you might have come across that made you you. And it is very, very important to be thinking about those things and thinking about what does that bring to the table as a new designer. Because a lot of the times for people, I think, who are very experienced, we get so used to doing things in a certain way that unlearning becomes very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. And I see this every single time, even in PMDojo, when we get people with very little experience, it is very easy to mold and coach them. But then when we get people with a whole bunch of years of experience, 18 years, 15 years, who are looking to transition, it is extremely hard to coach. So this is something that happens a lot in companies as well. So I think never undermine how much you can learn and how fast you can learn and the hunger that you have. And all of those things as someone relatively early in your career. So I just wanted to share those two things.
Yeah, awesome. We can speed through. We got a bunch of questions on YouTube. Our Zoom meeting was full, so like we had a bunch of buddies tune in on YouTube as well. So let's do some quick lightning round questions as we wrap up, and we can do a group photo in like a networking time. We just plug our links, but after our questions, so I don't lose a chat. So there's a couple of things. Yes, the recording will be available after the meeting. Okay, so Harshani asks, I have knowledge about UX process and things, but I haven't had any experience from UX research because I come from an IT and engineer background. Now looking for UX research jobs, how do I mitigate the gap between UX research and engineering? So I was like, how would you, I guess that kind of like can group the questions together a little bit, is like, how would you gain like user research experience to validate the problem that you're trying to solve in your project?
Oh, can I take that?
Yeah, that's for you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think like especially for a lot of folks, I think like even the previous example of edtech or like IT and engineering, like there is a lot of context that you might have from a specific domain. And I think it's important to understand the responsibilities as well for like how a UX researcher would perform in a specific organization or a team versus how would a designer doing the research would like try to get in the minimal research that's needed for the project. So understanding that role or the requirements or like the day-to-day responsibilities is probably like one of the first things to quite get into what a UX researcher would do. And also like there is a lot of different ways of trying to do research, like either it's moderated or unmoderated. Like you can send out surveys and also get a lot of information about the actual users that are using the product. So I think the like mitigating gap between research and engineering is mostly trying to talk to actual users. So the more you talk to actual users who are using the product, the faster you will learn about the problems, and that information can be processed to quite solve the problems in design. So understanding where research comes into play in the entire picture of like the design process, I think that's like quite key, and it helps mitigate those gaps.
Awesome. Talk to users directly. Exactly. So I'm going to do one more question and we can do a group photo because we're kind of cutting short on time here. It's from Kate on YouTube. She asks, as a UX design student, how to find experience working with a developer and do some side projects, or how would you like gain that like engineering collaboration experience as a student?
Come to PMDojo. Go ahead, Vikram.
Yeah, it's again like you either like reach out to like the engineers or developers in your circle, or like there are so many like threads or like channels even within like design buddies where you can like post out a question saying anyone with engineering experience, or you can even reach out to someone on LinkedIn to quite help your project, and I would say the faster you can reach out is by creating templates for yourself. So just create a template to reach out to someone from an engineering side, and create a template or a message for a PM side, and just shoot them out whenever you have time. And definitely someone will respond, and you can quite work with them. And there are like many platforms where you can quite reach out to get that experience. It's not really easily available to kind of have that engineering experience as a designer, but yeah, like reach outs are the best.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do our group photo time. And also any last pieces of wisdom you'd like to share with our buddies today, Vic. And feel free to stop sharing your screen, and our buddies, feel free to turn your camera if you want to be in our group photo. We like to do this for fun. Going to be on our Instagram stories as well if you all want to be on TV. Any last words before we do our group photo?
I think like I'm happy to like help anyone looking for specific mentorship as well. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. So yeah, I'm pretty responsive. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing about engineering, that they're like really good at thinking of like edge cases of products. So think of like your edge case users and take them into consideration with your designs. But yeah, as we take our group photo, we like to encourage our buddies to connect with each other as well. So this is your time to plug away, and you can like save the chat and like connect with everyone here and saying that y'all met at this event, because we want buddies to make more buddies here. I'm gonna drop the Design Buddies link, and feel free to drop all your links and plug away. And as we take our group photo, make sure to save the chat and connect with everyone you see, and leave a personalized invite, personalized message saying that y'all met at Design Buddies. We want our buddies to be connected with each other. Feel free to drop your other socials as well. And as I finish dropping our socials, we can do our group photo. So we're gonna do a photo first and then a wave for our Instagram story. So I'm gonna count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. I love the hand William. We're gonna do a wave for our Instagram story. This is like something we do. You can like wave, dance, dab, do whatever you want. And I'm gonna make sure I'm logged into the right account. Like one time I actually posted in the wrong account. All right, ready, set, wave. Hello, buddies. We are here at Break into Tech with the right UX problem with our buddies at PMDojo and their speaker, Vic. Thanks for tuning in today from Zoom and YouTube. Make sure to catch your recording. Cool. Something fun we like to do. And with that, I think that concludes our event. Is there anything else we like to talk about? If not, save the chat and connect with everyone you see.
Thank you so much, Grace, for doing this.
Yeah, of course. It was fun.
Thank you all.
All right. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Happy
Bye.
November. Bye, everyone. Save the chat. Connect with everyone. Bye. Make friends.